Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron, thanks for joining us here today. We're taking a verse-by-verse, word-by-word journey through the book of Genesis. You can get a Bible, follow along, or you can just follow along. But we're going to go through, we're in lesson 93. We're in Genesis 45:22. Joseph has just revealed himself to his brethren, and now he's sending them back, as is Pharaoh, to Canaan to get Dad and the whole family. Dramatic. And the next 400 years or so, they're going to spend in the land of Egypt. Now, some people would say that the time clock with Egypt had already started, but we're just going with traditional time periods here. But that's really not the focus. The focus is what's going on. So verse 22, to all of them he gave, this is Joseph, to his brethren, to men changes of raiment. So clothing, very valuable. Remember, having food and raiment, we're supposed to be content. But to Benjamin, who's his brother from Rachel, not just a half-brother, he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. You remember the helping he gave him at supper, when they had eaten supper together was 5 times more than anybody's else. So many times people equate the number 5 with grace. Obviously it's got 5 letters, but there's some great books on biblical numbers, not numerology, but just the significance of biblical numbers. You may want to check out some of those. I think, is it Seiss has one. He's also got one, Gospel in the Stars, not astrology, astronomy. And I think Ed Velo has one as well, but there's some others on numbers in Scripture. I think Bullinger in his Companion Bible, which is a very good Bible in some ways, has that as well. And so verse 23, and to his father he sent after this manner, 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, even though they're in the midst of a famine, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. And meat, many times in the Bible, is used in a 1600 sense, that it just means food. Many times just means grains of some sort. So like the meat offering is really the meal offering, and that's just one of those translational things. It's not an error in the Bible. It's just that time period's phraseology, like let means stop sometimes. Like in Canada, let means to rent. All right, so verse 24. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, see that you fall not out by the way. Verse 25, and they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father. This is pretty intense here. So, because Jacob's an ancient guy by this time, even though they lived a little longer in this time period of history, of course, before the flood, very much longer. But this is several centuries after the flood, and he's this ancient guy. And verse 26, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. I mean, this would be like somebody knocking on your door and you answer it and saying, a multi-billionaire aunt from London that you used to know has died and left her billions to you. And you'd be like, I don't. But even more intense because of the love that Jacob, first of all, had for Rachel, and then, of course, for his firstborn. So pretty amazing here. So he didn't believe in verse 27, and they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. So he's just like, oh, it's crazy. And then they're like, look at everything. So he's piecing together information. He's like, that's the only way. They're giving him Joseph's words. Okay. And so he's back in the saddle again, so to speak. Verse 28, and Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. Could you imagine how many years this has been? This has been, I think Joseph is 39 or so at this point. He went down in Egypt 17, so maybe 22 years, some just many, many years. I may be off some on that chronology, but many, many years. And I will go and see him before I die. So that's another thing you notice in Genesis. They really expected their deaths and looked to their deaths, like Isaac did the same thing, Jacob's father. So chapter 46, verse 1, in Israel, which is Jacob, after his wrestling with the angel and God, and Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba. This is one of the most southernmost parts of what's called the Negev. It's kind of a V shape down there. And offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. So that's pretty interesting. It's like it still wasn't quite his God. It's like, and Isaac did dwell in that area as well. So it's like remembering his father. So just a lot of emotion here from the revelation of Joseph to this. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. One study you might want to do in the Bible sometime is the number of times God calls people twice. Like Jacob, Jacob. And so now Joseph had dreams. Jacob's having dreams. Remember Jacob's ladder. Jacob had a dream, multiple dreams in Syria with Laban and these type things. And so, and it's kind of like sovereign acts of God. Jacob was not a good guy, but God had chosen, Romans 9, not in a, when I say predestination sense, but in a sense that God just said, from Abraham, you're going to be blessed because of your grandfather Abraham. And verse 3, and he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I'm going to make of you a great nation. Thee is singular. Thee, thou, thine is singular in the King James. One of the beauties, it brings the Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic singular plural into English, where almost every modern translation doesn't. Ye, you, yours is plural. And so they didn't speak that way really in King James time. They just did it for accuracy's sake. And I will go down with thee into Egypt. I think that's fascinating. And I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Now I'm going to bring you up again. Well, he's going to die. So this is talking about his bones. I'm going to bring you, your bones, up again. And this goes back to what Jesus said. I don't want to get too esoteric or deep into this about I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Be gathered unto your fathers, this phraseology in Genesis. A lot there. So Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. So verse 5, and Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, who's very old, their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry them. And they took their cattle and their goods which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, verse 6, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, verse 7, his sons and his sons' sons with him, and his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. Now, as far as we know, didn't he only have one daughter, Dinah? This is something that I've always been curious about as I've read this, that it indicates he had multiple daughters. You'd say, well, the granddaughters, but it seems like the granddaughters are taking care of his son's daughters. So maybe Dinah had daughters. I'm not real sure on that. I just always found that fascinating. His daughters, maybe he considered some servants his daughters or something. I don't know. So we're going to stop right there. Absolutely amazing. So Israel is in Egypt, and this is going to lead to the Exodus. Centuries later, God's doing more than we know. He's got everything under control. God bless you. We love you. Talk with you later. Bye-bye.